When you look at the data and you're like, well, the TAM is not big and it's not growing, those are two negatives, a big negative, because you can do a lot in life, but you cannot fight with TAM. It's the laws of physics, so you cannot fight with the laws of physics.
Hey folks, really excited for you all to hear the episode today with Nitin. Nitin is not only a ex-Googler, but he's an entrepreneur. He ran his business for 10 years. You'll hear a little bit about how he had a very dramatic pivot 5-6 years into the business, all the way to the point where they sold it into Salesforce, where he's now the SVP and GM of ecom. Very, very, very cool episode. We touch a little bit on entrepreneurship and a lot on commerce. We talk and break down about what agentic commerce means, all the buzzwords, all the actual tactical things that we're seeing in the field. And I think just overall a really, really good episode, especially if you want to understand a bit more about the Salesforce ecosystem. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce toolbox expert's perspective. Joining us today, we have the SVP and GM of Salesforce Commerce Cloud and Retail Cloud, which just recently went through a rebrand, and we're now going to go Agentforce Commerce. So welcome to Nitin Mangtani. Welcome, Nitin.
Thank you. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks for having me on your podcast. And I know it's Friday evening for you in East Coast of Canada, so thank you for doing this on the later side.
Yeah, no worries. I couldn't pass it up. You're a busy guy, so we're really excited. Honestly, listen to some of your talks at the recent Salesforce, some of the other content you've done. So I think our viewers are really, really going to like this. And as you know, because you listen to the show, we always like to start off with the same question. For people that don't know you, maybe walk us through your career journey. You've actually gone from supply chain to Google Shopping and then starting your own company, and now you're running commerce at one of the biggest platforms. So maybe talk us through your career journey and how you ended up in your current role.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a very rewarding journey, and I'm just thankful with the companies I worked with, the people I worked with, the leaders I worked with, and most importantly, the founders I got to work with. I mean, you're a founder, and the founder energy is just very vital and special. And, it was one of the motivations when I started PredictSpring was seeing other founders in action. As far as my journey is concerned, I started in the early days, kind of almost 25 years ago at i2, which was a supply chain company, and they built this amazing retail and manufacturing supply chain software, which allows you to do optimization. Think about predictive and machine learning before those words were still mainstream. We were doing some really fundamental stuff back then. From there, I went to BA, which was really the leader in Java technology. They built WebLogic, which was the market-leading product. And I built a product there called Liquid Data, which was around data federation. Think about the current version of Data Cloud at Salesforce, which is obviously way ahead. But we were doing some initial work around zero copy and data federation back in the days the product was called Liquid Data. And then from BA, I went to Google. I spent a year or so in the enterprise team at Google. And then the last 6 years in shopping and commerce. And we scaled that product. When I was Google, I think we had like less than maybe a couple hundred merchants, and we were almost at 1 million by the time I left. And that business is tens of billions of dollars. So it's a huge kind of business for Google. And then I left Google in 2013, so 12 years ago, and then started PredictSpring. And PredictSpring was the leading modern point of sale software. We powered some of the largest brands and continue to power some of the largest brands in the world. We are live in 25 plus countries with our POS product. Some of our biggest customers were Crate and Barrel, Under Armour, Lovesac, Herman Miller. And so it was really just an amazing kind of product. And that's where Salesforce acquired PredictSpring 15 months ago. And early this year, Mark asked me to bring all our teams together. And that was the biggest honor, getting a call from Mark and bringing our B2C product, B2B product, order management, Salesforce payments, our focus on shopper agent and agentic commerce, and then POS all under a single umbrella, which kind of logically makes sense. Like we are going towards agentic era, but the foundation of unified commerce is still critical. You still need those core pieces. And so that's where we are talking to you today. And obviously, I'm very thankful for you guys being a very important partner for the commerce team.
Amazing. That's, by the way, congrats on the career. Congrats on the acquisition. As you know, as a founder, some days good, some days not so good is kind of how I explain it to my wife. So that's amazing.
Lows are really low, highs are really high.
I'm with you on that. And I mean, it's really cool. So you've obviously built commerce from a few different angles, like the Google Shopping. You talked a bit about the POS, and now you're doing it from the Salesforce lens. Maybe curious, like, why did you guys go down the POS route when you left Google to actually start a company? Was that the initial idea, or did it kind of land there as a gap in the market?
You're exactly right. Like, no, that wasn't my initial idea. So when I left Google, I came from a very consumer mindset and I started building a platform, like a no code platform to build any mobile experience, starting with mobile apps and then mobile web. And we were dabbling back in the days, those early days, we were dabbling with all the native code and Apple Pay. And then at some point, I made a decision. I said, look, the bigger gap is not mobile apps. Well, mobile apps are important still today, but only 10% of the retail brands really saw the value for a mobile app. Everybody else did needed a native mobile app versus everybody needed a point of sale. 100% of our customers or 99% of our customers who have physical stores, you need a POS. And what we had built was very modern. It had four main tenets. Because we started with a mobile app platform, it was already mobile first. Most of the POSs were built in the desktop era and mobility was a patch or an add-on versus we were native mobile. We were also omni-channel by design because my initial foray wasn't stores, it was digital and online. So all the capabilities I had built for e-commerce became very powerful enablers to do real omnichannel and unified commerce. Third was when you're building mobile apps, extensibility is very critical because everybody needs a lot of control on design. And all e-commerce platforms either have a CMS or they partner with an external CMS. But that's not true with POS. Actually, none of the POSs have a CMS system. We were the only point of sale system, and still today, which comes with a full CMS. So you can completely customize the UI without writing code. So that was another tenant. And the last tenant was customer centricity, customer 360. So in some ways, like it was a blessing, even though we had to do the pivot, but the core tenants that we thought in the consumer world became our biggest differentiation when we built a modern POS, which was for the store associates. Without those core tenants, we would have been just another commodity point of sale out there.
Because that's interesting. It sounds like when you joined, it wasn't necessarily like the market didn't have options. Like the POS was not that it was super saturated, but it was more of a mature market. It wasn't as like early and up and coming to your point because it was an older channel than online. That's really, really cool. What made you guys pivot? What was the aha moment? I think every founder always remembers that aha moment. Where were you? What were you thinking? What happened?
It's such a great question you ask. And like pivots are just like natural. Like other companies go through pivots. Even the most successful ones have gone through pivots. For us, really, we were looking at the customer engagement, right? And I think I would tell every founder that revenue is important. Look at your ARR. But what's even more important is your customer engagement. That's your leading indicator. In some ways, revenue is the lagging indicator. The leading indicator on where the market is going, where the customer is going, is looking at the engagement. And we saw a slight dip in the engagement on mobile apps, which was counter to us because we were like, well, this is early days. This should be like 100% consumer.
It should be growing.
Yeah, 100%. And so it was clear that the consumer behavior had shifted. Consumers were not downloading as many mobile apps because the mobile web was getting more powerful. And again, if you're a larger brand, the mobile apps still matter and make sense. But when you are like a mid-sized brand or long tail, the mobile apps didn't give any value. And we kind of saw this pattern across maybe 4 or 5 quarters. So we were not knee-jerk. It's not like we woke up one morning or like, holy shit, like really bad weekly, because we are looking at DAUs, weekly active users, and monthly MAUs, all three. And over a period of maybe 9 months or so, it became clear that it's an interesting market, but it's going to be very niche. It's not going to be like a massive market. And as you know, like a VC funded company, now whether you become a massive market or not, but honestly, TAM is so important. You have to focus and make sure your TAM is massive and it's growing. And so when you look at the data and you're like, well, the TAM is not big and it's not growing, those are two negatives, a big negative, because you can do a lot in life, but you cannot fight with TAM. You know what I mean? Like, no amount of execution.
It's gravity at the end of the day.
Exactly. It's the laws of physics, right? So you cannot fight with the laws of physics. And so I was just lucky enough. We had a phenomenal board and they were just amazing leaders. And I had Ken Saif, he's just a great leader and he's been a retail executive for many years. And I had Aiden Sankert, who's founder for Felicia's and as a former Googler himself. And we all came together and we looked at the data and we said, yeah, you know what? Let's think about. And interestingly, we have been talking about POS for 2 years, independent of this pivot. Like we were thinking about POS as an expansion for last 2 years by the time we came to this decision. And all this time it was like, well, we have this amazing technology. Could we use it in the stores or not? But then we are like, guys, we could only do one thing and we could do one thing right. And that's one of the lessons, if I could tell anybody, that once you know you're going to pivot hard, pivot fast, and do just one thing. And even though it took us 9 months or something, we decided to pivot and we said, we're going to do one thing. The thing is, we did the right thing, which is we gave our customers enough time so that they could migrate. So I still had to maintain two kind of teams parallelly for a period of 2 to 3 years. And that's just doing the right thing for the industry.
That's a really, really cool story. And what year was that in? Like, and then from there to the Salesforce acquisition, like how long was that? And how did that play out, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, so I founded the company in 2013. We pivoted around 2018, 2019, and then the acquisition was 2024, right? So it's right in the middle, right? So I was running my company for 11 and a half years, and this is a hard pill to swallow, that you have built a product, and it was a real business, right? Like we had revenue, and it was real business and real customers. We had like, on the mobile app business, we had Calvin Klein, Vineyard Wines, Tommy Hilfiger, Michael Kors, Ralph Lauren, Skechers, you name it. We had like all these amazing brands. And so from there on, pivoting after 5 years of founding the company.
That takes guts. When we pivoted, we had no revenue, so we had nothing to lose. But yeah, that's crazy.
It was the right decision. And we were fiscally very good. Like when I was talking to my VCs, they were telling me that we had the highest capital efficiency to ARR ratio. So like by the time I sold my company to Salesforce, so I had done seed round, Series A, and Series B. I had 100% of my Series B money still in the bank. I didn't use a penny. And I had more than 50% of my Series A money still in the bank. So like I had done Series A in 2016, I sold the company in 2024. So 8 years later, I still had half of the money from the round I had done 8 years before. And I think that's one of the things I do prescribe to this philosophy, that startups don't fail, they simply run out of money.
It's true. You can only fail when you stop working on it, to your point.
Yeah, or you run out of money. But as far as you have money and you have the will, you can actually rebuild the company with just resilience and focus.
Makes sense. And as we look to pivot into the agent force and the agentic commerce kind of future, last question, like when the day you got the call, what did that look like? I'm assuming it wasn't out of the blue. Was this something that you knew was coming down the line when someone made the strategic priority that somebody needed something new? I'm just curious how that actually played out.
The acquisition is a very long process. It wasn't like a binary switch, like a phone call, right? Like we were already partners with Salesforce. We were adding tremendous value to our joint customers because our joint customers were asking for a unified commerce platform, right? So there was a lot of value to have both e-commerce and POS, right? Both the pieces of the puzzle. And even today, we power a lot of our joint customers together, right? And so we were partners with Salesforce. We had joint customers. Salesforce was an investor. So it felt like a very long dating cycle, right? So it wasn't like a binary where all of a sudden I got a phone call saying, here's the acquisition. And that never happens, by the way, right? Like, I think that's just a reality. Like all M&As are very long-standing relationships that both the companies come to the conclusion that, well, let's take it a notch higher from there and go on the M&A path. And then it still takes a lot of time between due diligence and everything. So that's kind of really the journey there.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And now look, now you have the whole grand vision. Like you mentioned, you got the call from Mark to take over this huge part of the business. Diving headfirst into it, really, how do you position agentic commerce beyond the hype? What is agentic commerce? How should the retailers, your customers, be thinking about it?
Yeah. To me, like if you think about consumer behavior today, right? Whether we have 900 million or maybe a billion on ChatGPT, and I think it's similar order of magnitude on Gemini and Anthropic. So it's clear that the consumer behavior has shifted from typing in two keywords to having a full conversation. And the expectation is that you can have a full conversation and there will be an intelligence which will kind of, have a full response back to you, right? And to me, that's the leading indicator. So once the consumer behavior shifts, every industry follows. It doesn't matter what industry you are in. You could be in finance, you could be in travel, you could be in retail, you could be in healthcare, you could be in pharma. And so that's a much more broader kind of shift in the industry. And the way I think about agentic is that agentic has three kind of surface points or touch points that you see. One is as a consumer. So whether I'm going to a e-commerce website like Pandora, which is one of our big customers, and I'm shopping something, I want to have a full conversation. Whether I'm going to Williams Sonoma, which is also a customer, and I'm trying to buy something for home, I want to have full conversation. So that's the consumer side of the story. Then there is the employee side, which is the call center, the store associates, and the internal kind of optimization. And that's where agentic also plays in, like merchandising, help with like recommending promotions or enabling the setup with few prompts then clicks, right? It's literally the phrase I use or industry uses, I would say, is prompts, not clicks. So if we can avoid 20 clicks and just give a prompt saying, let's create a 20% off promotion, which is active only for 48 hours and applicable only in store, that's a simple 3 lines that a marketer can type in versus having to figure it out. Where do I navigate my admin console? Did I fill in the field properly? Did I click the right drop down? And things like that. So that's the employee side, right? So there's the consumer side, there's the employee side. And then there is the, like what I call it, background agents, which could be supply chain, replenishment. They're just doing their job in a fully autonomous way. And so I think in retail and commerce, we're going to see the flavor of all three. The first one, we are calling it shopper agent, where as a shopper, you can talk to an agent and you can both shop as well as resolve any support issue. So if you don't know what's going on with your order or you want a refund, you can go to the same agent. Second is the associate agent. So the associate can be productive in the stores as well. A lot of times associate themselves don't have all the knowledge. Like they don't know if this promotion is still active, when the inventory is coming. And if you can just make it conversational and they can just speak to a POS, that's powerful. And the last piece of the puzzle is full automation, which is like the use case I always highlight is replenishment. Like the inventory replenishment can be fully automated, or testing or finding the quality of your e-commerce. Like those could be fully automated agents where the humans are doing the final review, but the work is happening background. It's almost like a asynchronous job that runs every hour or every day and kind of does its work. And so we're going to see profound use of agentic. And we did a big launch at Dreamforce with Pandora and Williams Sonoma on the shopper agent. And you're going to see the flavors on merchandising as well as automation.
That's amazing. And how does that deliver different business outcomes? Like if I'm a CIO at one of these brands and we're like, okay, this makes sense, right? Like, okay, I'm going to have a more personalized experience, whether it's online or helping the in-store agent. And then some of the automations, like, does this directly impact my TCO? Should I expect a higher conversion? Like, how does that translate directly to business metrics, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, ROI is a big discussion in the industry, right? Like, if you're investing dollars, is there a quantifiable ROI? And the good news is we can measure in all three areas, right? The shopper agent, obviously the most credible metric, which is an industry-wide metric, right? Like and your team, I know, does it, measure it, is conversion rates and basket size, right? So the question is, okay, if the primary interface went from search to conversations or agentic on the shopping side, what kind of lift are we seeing in a conversion rate, both on mobile and desktop? And what kind of a lift we are seeing in the basket size with a better recommendation and a better personalized agent, right? Because the vision I like is like, take the analogy of your most knowledgeable store associate and the consumer who knows this associate and always goes to the same person every time they go to the store. So the next time they go to the store, the associate knows them so well that when they say, I'm looking for a new pair of sneakers, they don't bring 100 sneakers to the customer. They bring 3, which they think will be most relevant to this consumer based on their taste, parts, purchase history, price sensitivity, and a little bit of newness, right? If there's a new arrival, you want to kind of show it to the consumer. You want to mix it up a little bit, right? So you bring in 3, maybe 5 pairs, but not 200. And that's measurable. So like if you can like increase the conversion rate with this personalized agent or concierge for every store associate, not just your top 1%, which have access to these associates, but now it's in the digital world, it's access to 100% and 24/7. So that's, I feel, is the most quantifiable way. On the associate side is, again, tied to the revenue, but also the associate productivity, right? And same thing on the employee side, the merchandisers, right? Like instead of spending 2 hours creating a promotion. Can I do it in 5 minutes? And that's a huge energy saver. So that's directly tied to employee productivity. And the last one is again accuracy, right? Like the replenishment agent. If the replenishment agent's job is to replenish the inventory, well, how well the replenishment agent is doing, right? Is the inventory replenishing every Sunday? Are you seeing any outages with certain products which are in demand or more seasonal? And so that's directly managed by knowing the accuracy of that particular agent, right? So I think all three have different criterias, but they are very quantifiable.
If you're listening to the e-commerce toolbox, you're entitled to a podcast exclusive website audit. Go to noibu.com/podcast-audit for a free scan that uncovers the hidden friction blocking your conversions and shows you where you're leaking revenue.
On a recent podcast that I did, I kind of got into this a bit with a mutual connection of ours, Madhav, and I asked him, and I'm curious to hear your opinion. I asked him, what you just described makes a lot of sense. Now, at what part of the customer journey does this happen? Does this happen in Gemini or GPT, where it has all your search and purchase history, and that's where it's cataloged to say, hey, these 3 shoes from this person? Or is this actually happening dynamic on the website? And do you have to authenticate through one of these systems, or is it just going to leverage your previous interaction with that same website? So like, if you were to kind of place a bet, at what layer do you think this is actually going to happen?
It's going to happen on both. It's just like channels, right? So like I think we have a couple good historical data points. So when search came in, right, when I was at Google, right, everybody was very worried. They're like, well, would anybody even bother to go to a website? If you can just do comparison shopping on Google, why even go to an individual website and why to go to store? The reality is that didn't happen, right? Like commerce happens on owned and operated properties, like your website, your mobile app. 77% commerce still happens in physical stores. So these channels don't go away. It's just the boundaries between the channels get blurred. So, and same thing happened with social, right? Like when Instagram launched, everybody, including me, I thought, well, this is the best point of inspiration. If I can see my friend wearing a jacket and that looks cool, I should be able to just click on a buy button and buy it. Reality is the actual commerce on Instagram is still small, but they're a huge driver of referral traffic. So the agentic will follow a similar, maybe something a little different, but it's going to be not binary. Commerce will happen on ChatGPT, on Gemini. Definitely, referral traffic will come from Anthropic, Gemini, and ChatGPT. There's no 2 doubts in my mind of that. Just like the referral traffic came from search and then came from social, now agentic is going to be a double-digit percentage of the referral traffic. And some other channels will rebalance themselves naturally, right? So I think the search numbers are going to go a little bit down, and then the agentic will kind of, take over. But that story is very easy to actually predict because it's already happening, right? People are already going to ChatGPT and searching. How much will actually happen on ChatGPT and Gemini versus your owned and operated property versus your stores? So if the mix-up today is 25% digital, 75% store, and out of that 25%, I would say 24% is owned and operated property
At scale or today?
today. So I'm saying right now, digital is, let's say, 25% and physical stores is 75, right? 25, 75. And it varies a little bit. If you are a big wholesaler, then you're selling through your partners or marketplaces. So there's a little bit of variance versus you are a very strong D2C brand. But let's take a simple heavy D2C brand. It's doing 25% online, 75% physical stores. Out of that 25, I'm saying 23 to 24 is happening on their own websites and mobile app. Only 1% is happening in a syndicated channel outside their own kind of thing. Unless with a caveat, if they're a big wholesaler selling to other retailers or they are participating in a marketplace, right? Like Amazon and things like that. So then the question is, okay, well, what would this mix look like 5 years from today, 10 years from today? And I think in some ways it's a good intellectual kind of data point to have. But in other ways, if I was a brand, my recommendation would be show your best self in all 3 channels because you can't dictate the consumer behavior. And does it really matter where the final purchase happened? It's your consumer, right? At the end of the day, you want to sell more shoes or more handbags or more dresses or more perfumes, right? And so your job is to make sure you show up the best on agentic channels like ChatGPT and Gemini. Please don't give up on your website because Thankfully, you didn't give up when Google launched, right? Your website is still that's your home. Like your owned and operated property is going to remain the most important factor. Same thing with store. Please don't give up on stores. Stores are fundamental. In fact, they're back now in action in the last 2 years, right? So please don't give up. And as a platform company like Salesforce, our job is to give them the tools for all three. So we launched a partnership with OpenAI, right? So we'll make it easy to publish product catalog. Also, we have endorsed the ACP protocol, the agentic commerce, which is instant checkout on OpenAI. We launched the shopper agent, which is powering the owned and operated property, the website or the mobile app. And then we have a POS product for the stores, right? So as a platform company, instead of trying to just predict which channel will grow, our point is let's give you the best tool for all three. And our answer to you customers is please don't give up on any of the existing channels.
I think that's very pragmatic because it's interesting. Like we have a lot of the similar data and like I haven't really been seeing too many completion. Like there's a growing referral traffic is what you're flagging. Like, and it's obviously to come, right? With the ACP protocol and all of that, but it's going to be interesting to see, like to your point, I don't know. And does it matter is another question, but I don't know how much is actually going to convert in those channels. To your point, if you draw a complete parallel to Google Shopping, I mean, why would you have a website if everything went through that, right? And that clearly not what happened.
Same thing with Instagram. A lot of people thought that the Instagram account they had is their website.
It's true.
Right? They're like, well, do I need a website if I have a beautiful Instagram account? And I think that's where it's important to notice that, well, every channel has a value. And while on surface, it looks like it's cannibalizing, in practicality, it's complementary each other.
Very cool. Pivoting a little bit, talk to us a bit about what you think the right to win is moving forward. Like, where's the focus coming? Where do you feel like you guys are best positioned to win in the market? Obviously, it's been a dominant platform for more than a decade now, but yeah, like what's the right to win? And then how is that folding into like the strategy and where you guys think you're best?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, competition is beautiful. I think it brings the best out of everybody. So, I think if you are a founder and a CEO, and if you have no competition, that means you are in a very small market, in a very niche market. Any large market will have 5, 10, 15 players, right? And they all will have their focus. And then we have different products, right? So we have B2C commerce product, B2B, OMS, and POS, and each one of them has different set of competitors. Some of them overlap, but some of them are just unique. So like in the competitors we see in our OMS product, for example, the order management, are very different than we see in our e-commerce platform. And many times the overlap is very low. And for us, it's really providing the best value and the lowest TCO to our customers. So we are very composable API first. So if you just want to use our order management with one of our competitors who are powering their e-commerce and the other competitor who is powering the POS, we are very comfortable. And actually, that's a lot of times is a ground reality. There are times where people just use our point of sale product with a custom homegrown e-commerce platform. And that's also fine. But if you want to use our products together, we are able to give you the unified commerce in a much more seamless way. Because now we have B2C commerce, B2B commerce, OMS, which is to me is the glue between e-commerce and point of sale, right? And we have all these 4 products now. And I think very few people have the breadth of the products we have, which directly helps our customers with a lower total cost of ownership. But overall, like I'm a big believer that at the end of the day, you have to respect your competition, but it's really a lot about how you think, how you build your team, how you execute, and most importantly, how you serve your customers. A lot of the product teams, I think, get carried away with technology and they're not obsessed with customers. I'm one of those leaders who's obsessed with customers. Like my day starts with customers, my day ends with customers. Product is important. Like if you don't build a great product, obviously nothing matters. But to me, like a great product alone is not enough if you are not customer driven and you need to be in that mode like you're serving your customers and you're really listening to them very deeply every day.
I love that. I think there's so much to tease out of that, but I agree. I think a lot of people don't prioritize the customer enough. I think you need to solve customer problems, provide a lot of that flexibility. It's really awesome. Moving forward, could you talk a bit about some of the stuff that's coming down the pipe? I know you mentioned kind of the 3 different pillars that you're looking into. What's kind of some of the priorities as you look to the roadmap next year?
Honestly, it's literally 2 things in my mind. It's agentic commerce. We are still in like first innings, early days. We have taken the lead and we are delivering to the market, both at the company level as well as at my division level. But we are early. I think this movie is going to evolve a lot in a very beautiful way. And it's one of those areas, after a long time, I feel like a PM in that area. Many other areas, I'm more like an executive and I'm, helping the team with meta things. This one, I'm super hands-on. I'm like going through every single mock-up, every single UI, every single thinking behind it. Like, what does semantic search mean? What's the future of? So there's just a lot of, it's one of the most beautiful times to live in as we are rethinking the entire software industry. And I think we'll be spending the next decade on this. So that's obviously my number one focus. The number two is unified commerce, really providing this breadth of our products in the most harmonious way possible so that customers don't have to pick and choose their channels from agentic, online to in-store. It's just one seamless journey.
I love that. And on the unified data front, something that we've spent a lot of time talking about is data transformation. So as you start to build out, you mentioned from clicks to prompts. A lot of people have the UI set up for clicks, but how many people have the UI and the data infrastructure set up for prompts? And what I mean by that is data transformation, amalgamation. How do you think about that as people are starting to roll out AI products that, I personally, I call it the magic machine. It's like, you ask it this crazy question, beep, beep, boop, boop. It comes back with like some crazy insight, right? Like, how much of that is unified data transformation, and how are you guys thinking about that for your customers?
So another great question. It's huge. Reflected in our recent acquisition of Informatica. These agents have to be grounded in enterprise data. And the old age of garbage in, garbage out is still true. That thing has not changed, which is if you don't have the data accuracy, if you don't have the data mapping, if you don't have the taxonomy, if you don't have the metadata, if you don't understand the semantics of the data, your agents are not helpful, right? Because all the enterprise agents are grounded in your product catalog. When a customer is saying, I'm looking for dressier sneakers that go along with my dark jeans, they're not looking for any random sneaker out there in the web. They're looking in your product catalog. So your product catalog, if your product catalog is not enriched, it doesn't have the right categorization, it doesn't have the right images, it doesn't have the right attributes. Now, you might use AI to enrich your product catalog, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong in it because AI is going to be like everywhere, right? It's going to be in every single stream. But you still need a very good product catalog, which has a clear semantics and mapping, data modeling, and everything. You need a very clean order data because if you don't have the purchase history, you are not able to do a lot of algorithms. You still need the click history, the consumer behavior, and anything you can derive from the engagement on your properties, right? So you're absolutely right. And this is where we invested a lot in data cloud at Salesforce. So Salesforce, the main data fabric is the data cloud. And now Informatica will just add so much more value to this overall data strategy and data integration. But yeah, any problem you're trying to solve, because also one thing in enterprise, unlike consumer use case, like the consumer use case and a maybe answer is a decent answer. But in enterprise, if somebody is saying that, help me refund this order, and the agent says, maybe you'll get the money back. It's a really bad answer. It's not even 70% good. It's actually 0% good. So the determinism in enterprise is foundational. If I'm talking about my order ID 103, it cannot be 103 and 104. It has to be 103 and only 103. And if I'm only returning a sneakers out of the 5 products I bought, my refund is only for that one sneaker, not the full order, right? So that the data and the workflow, also the workflow is important here. Those foundational pieces are critical in getting agentic work right.
So much to pull on that. It's very interesting. Do you think this problem can be solved horizontally? Example, I log into ChatGPT. It's like, connect all your apps. Can a retailer do that? And bada bing, bada boom, they have it.
I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT and now Gemini. Gemini has made a lot of progress in the last 3 months. But again, I think this binary thinking of everything will happen in ChatGPT will not happen. Now, some head apps will be connected with ChatGPT, right? So the consumer, there will be few apps which make sense. Let me connect with ChatGPT. But when it comes to you got whatever, 1 million brands out there in the world, consumers are not just like App Store. I'm not going to download the 1 million apps on my phone. I might download the head. So I don't think all these apps people will have time to go and connect on ChatGPT. But they will discover, they'll just give a prompt to ChatGPT or Gemini and say, well, find me the best companies for hand baggage. And it'll kind of give the carousel and all. And then you might land into one of the websites and you're like, oh, wow, actually, I want to discover more, right? So, I mean, there will be the platform companies will have horizontal answers, right? For example, our horizontal answer is Data Cloud. So whether you're in pharmaceuticals or you're in finance or you're retail, the Data Cloud is the horizontal layer. But the actual schema and the data mapping and the workflow are obviously unique to the problem statement.
And I think that's going to be interesting, or else a lot of the lift is going to fall on the end customer. And I think that could block some adoption. But no.
And that's a good point. What you just mentioned at the last point is what's the effort to build the agents? Because the ROI is a combination of returns, but also investment, right? That's why it's ROI. And again, I'm not trying to selling Salesforce here, but broadly just saying that a lot of the industry is going to invest in tooling and infrastructure to reduce the barrier to build agents. So if you're building a replenishment agent, right, you're not going through hundreds of lines of code or thousands of lines of data mapping. And even that workflow, what we announced at Dreamforce, is becoming agentic. So it's a beautiful recursive loop where you're building your next replenishment agent also by prompts and saying, can you pull my order history from this system? And the agent builder understands what that OMS system is. And instead of you having to manually go and map all that stuff and write code, it basically does that for you.
It's really cool. And you guys, I saw the Pandora demo when you guys did it. That was really cool. I've never really seen anything like that before. As we look to wrap up, maybe talk to us a bit about, if I'm a CIO, CDO of a brand that's listening right now, which, in your opinion, what should be top of mind for me as I'm wrapping up my F26 planning? Like, how should I be aligning my team to basically maximize the outcome of my company?
First of all, agentic is reality, right? It's happening. And sometimes we will overreact in certain areas. Sometimes we will underreact in certain areas. So a lot of times it feels like everything is going to go in one direction, which never happens, right? It's a lot more nuanced. Like we talked about the traffic, right? The traffic is not going to be just at one place. It's going to be on your owned and operated properties. Stores are still important. And now we have a new channel, which is agentic. And by the way, social has not gone anywhere. TikTok and Instagram are still very important, right? So having that balanced perspective on being able to make sure that you're not sacrificing one channel for others. Like that's the danger here. And this is exactly what happened to physical stores, right? Like when digital came in, people kind of took the eye off the ball on physical stores. And if you look at any brand, literally any single brand, the moment they started closing stores, eventually they shut the brand down. I literally have zero case studies where I can say, well, this brand, which had this amazing stores and online, decided to get out of stores and started thriving again. It never happens like that.
That is very true. That's amazing. Well, Nitin, I appreciate you taking the time. This was a phenomenal episode. Really, really appreciate it. And thanks again.
Thank you to you. And, as I said, I'm very thankful to your partnership with us. And you're building an amazing company. I get inspired by founders like you. And even this conversation was just like the most delightful conversation of the week for me. So thank you.
Amazing. That's very, very kind. Thank you so much, Nitin.
The e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the e-commerce toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.